Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to the Media Row podcast with me, Justin Miller. Happy to be back in Des Moines after a awesome, eventful St. Louis trip where the Drake Bulldogs hoist up their third straight Missouri Valley Conference championship, becoming only the second team to ever do it, next to Southern Illinois, who did it in, I think it was 93, 94, and 95. The mid-90s, able to do that, but incredible weekend. An absolute dream come true again to be able to go back to St. Louis after last year not being able to go to see Drake win. Was able to go in 2023, which started this and was amazing. But to be able to come back, where we've had a crazy few months with everything that has happened. And that was what, that just shows right there that this is what I want to do. It pumps me back up. It gets that fire lit under me. So I want to thank a few people that really made that trip possible before we really dive into today's show. And first and foremost, our title sponsor, Kelly's Little Nipper. It wouldn't have been possible without sponsors to be able to go on this trip. And Jeff has been incredible, texting me throughout the week, listening to the shows, just coming up with great ideas for us in the future and not just, focusing on what's happening this week, thinking about what we can do in the summer when things are a little slower in the sports world and coming up with some really cool ideas. And it means the world. It's awesome to have a partner like that, to have your back. And I know Jeff and I are going to do great things, and I'm just excited to build that community that Jeff has already built at Kelly's Little Nipper, and excited to see what comes from it. So thank you to Kelly's Little Nipper. I also need to give a huge thank you to one of my good buddies in Ross Peterson, a great mentor, an even better friend, someone I know I could call at any moment, and he would be there in a drop of a hat to be able to come and help me if I needed it. And him and Agency Iowa partner up to help sponsor me on that trip. They won't be like a title sponsor or anything for this show. That was just specifically for Arch Madness, and that was incredible. And again, can't thank Ross enough. Was on his show Friday morning with a few internet glitches, but now we're back home, so we won't have any of that. I'll be with Ross tomorrow on therushradio.com, so be sure to listen to that 6 to 8 a.m. But just really Kelly's Little Nipper and to Ross Peterson at Agency Iowa, a huge thank you. Couldn't have done this without you guys. Means the world that you're willing to put money into and believe in something like Media Row, because it is scary when, I've never tried to sell anything before. This is brand new, so I understand the outlook of wanting to see what happens, in the next few months, but them being willing to be the first people to sponsor this show and go in, with ideas and willing to help just means the world. So a huge, huge, huge thank you to Kelly's Little Nipper and Ross Peterson. Now, with that being said, let's get into just how awesome St. Louis was. Got in early Thursday, went straight to the hotel to put my bags away, and then sprinted to the Enterprise Center where watched 4 straight games in the first round. Went back to the hotel, stayed up late to get the podcast out. Then Friday, same exact thing. And it was just amazing to be able to go down there. If you haven't been to St. Louis to see Arch Madness, you have to go. I mean, my dad and I always wanted to go when I was real little, but Drake always played on Thursday, and we were like, is it worth the money to, because Drake would lose on those Thursdays more than likely they lost on those Thursday games. So we're like, do we go down just for the one day, or it's a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. It's a great experience. If Drake loses right away, it's still a great experience just because of it's fun basketball. The arena is really cool. A lot of really cool stuff you can check out around the main floor at the arena. Um, just it lives up to the hype, and it's cool because you watch on TV other mid-major, tournaments, and they look cool, but they don't have the same feeling as Arch Madness. Being able to be in a big city like St. Louis, you get the arena where the St. Louis Blues play. You pack it nearly 10,000, or I'm sorry, 8,000, in for the championship game yesterday, and it was just a cool experience. And I will push anyone to go to St. Louis. And with that being said, in St. Louis, met a lot of you listeners, and that was arguably the best part. Met a guy by the name of Bobby Ennis who's been commenting on Twitter. It was great to meet you, Bobby. And yes, I will try to get down to Indiana State to be able to watch one of those games, because I know you showed me all the cool Larry Bird museum photos and just how awesome that stadium has always looked on TV. I'd need to get there, so maybe next year. But met Bobby and met a handful of people that have really enjoyed listening to the show. And people have said some really, really nice things about what we're doing here at Media Row. And that just, again, like I said, seeing Drake win the title, being here, covering games nonstop, really lit a fire under me. Hearing those comments too, it really helps, on those days where just something's off. We all have those off days. And that kicks my butt into gear. So I really appreciate that. And that was cool seeing some old friends too. Saturday night, hung out with Admire and a lot of the people who work over at Drake. And those guys, I wouldn't be anywhere near where I'm at without those guys' help when I was a student. It was funny. I introduced, so Devin, who does our photos, DKG Images, who does photos and allows us to use them on our podcast. We hung out Saturday night, and I introduced him to a lot of the people that worked at Drake. And he was like, so were you did you help him with the student broadcasting? He was asking the guys these questions, and I basically said, no, I just annoyed the hell out of everyone, especially Danny Fry, who was the SID at Drake at my time, and he was down in St. Louis for this game, and it was awesome to see Danny because he was huge in me being able to do any of the cool things I've been able to do at Drake. But I just annoyed the hell out of all those guys. When students now like Will Baumgarter, who did the student broadcast, making it the third straight student broadcaster at DBS to call a championship. Congrats, Will. When he asked me, kind of like advice for how to be able to navigate and try to get opportunities, I don't hold back, and I say, you just try it, like, respectfully annoy the hell out of people. I mean, Danny, I was constantly emailing and texting, but I was willing to help with anything. I helped Danny with stats with soccer. I have no idea what I'm looking at when I watch a soccer game or is it a match. See, I don't even know that part. But I had a blast with it, and that's how I got to meet, Brian Harden and get closer with him, and he's been great and really supportive of Media Row. I mean, hell, those guys gave us a credential for the season when this was in the rough draft stages, when we hadn't even published a thing yet. They were willing to do that. So just really great people. Being able to meet them or hang out with them, see them again, was amazing. And so on top of Drake winning the title, there were so many other things that just made that trip really special. But let's get into what you guys really want to talk about, and that's Drake winning this title. Drake dominates. I mean, controls, looks comfortable, doesn't have to sweat it out. Reminiscent to 2023 against Bradley, 63-48. Did not see that coming. I thought Drake was going to win just because I'm always going to pick a defensive team to usually win over a team that's really good at offense. But man, Bradley's one of the deepest and balanced teams. Was really nervous going into it. And talked with Josh Betts, who we hung out quite a bit at the media table. And at halftime, when it's a back and forth game, Bradley's shooting 52% from the field. They started the game, whatever it was, 5 of 5, 4 of 4. Drake was off to a slow start, shooting 2 of 5. But when you have a first half that's back and forth, but it ends with Drake leading by 4, 31-27, and Bradley ended that half on a 4-minute scoring drought, you're starting to see the Drake defense start to really get active. Betts came over and he sits down with me at halftime and he's like, man, if Bradley can't do anything on the offensive end, this game's going to be over and ugly. And I was like, no. Wardle's too good of a coach. I think he's going to adjust and he is going to get this team ready. Duke Dean is a fantastic guard. While he may have started off slow, he'll be all right. Hannah is going to continue to really be aggressive because he was the only one showing emotion on the floor as the leader of the team. And Zeke Montgomery, he's going to get back. I mean, Janovic is too big for anyone at Drake. They got to just pound it to him. Bradley's going to figure it out. And I said these words. I said, I would be absolutely shocked if either one of these teams ran away with it. Well, we get to the second half, and Drake runs away with it. I mean, Bradley, they go into halftime on a 3-minute, 4-minute drought. They come out of halftime with a 2-minute drought. They didn't score their first points until 15 minutes and 5 seconds into the left on the clock. It was 37-29. They missed 9 team field goals in that stretch. But you had a Drake team that was just feeling itself after a 7-0 run to end at halftime. They held Bradley, of course, to that 4-minute scoring drought. They were forcing turnovers. They were getting production from their bench. Sturts was on fire. So Sturts at halftime had 12 points. One of our key points, if you remember from yesterday's show, previewing the game, was how Bradley has been one of those few teams to really control Bennett Sturts, holding him to an average of under 10 points in those 2 meetings. You take those 2 meetings and you combine them, Sturts had a combined total of 12 points. He finishes the day with 24 points. So he was feeling himself. You get Drake getting production from their bench. But early off in that second half, you were just seeing how important the rebounds were. I mean, Drake was dominating the glass. And you had a few technical fouls getting called. Duke Dean gets one called. And just the emotion and the activeness from Drake was really setting into Bradley. And you were seeing, like I said, only Darius Hannah. There was a moment, it was when Cale Combs got the 3 offensive rebounds in a row, which, how does he come up with the rebound? If I'm mortal, that's the play right there. Yeah, there was other things going wrong. Right there is where I go, Drake was just the better team that day. Because you have better size. I mean, Hannah's huge. Janovic is big. Zeke Montgomery, hell, I think he's bigger than Combs at the guard position. But when you let Cale Combs get 3 offensive boards, and it's credit to Cale too for hustling and being physical in the paint, not being afraid of Bradley's size, which Drake never was in that game, attacking the paint early in that first half too. But after that play, Hannah brings his group in. They huddle up, and he's cursing and saying, box out, but in a little more aggressive and more of that pissed off nature. And right there, I'm like, okay, let's see how they respond to their leader getting on them. And they just couldn't get a rebound. They were turning the ball over. They were allowing Drake to really do whatever they wanted and just became all Bulldogs. Very reminiscent to that 2023 game. Maybe not as offensively exciting because, I mean, when you have Sturts, Brody hitting threes, Roman Penn, Tucker, and DJ Wilkins going off like how they did in 23, yeah, the offense is going to be a little more exciting, but this one was all defense and just the balance all around. So, how Drake won 3 straight titles, very first thing is they just controlled the glass. One of the biggest things they had to do was compete with the size and the length that Bradley had and not get into a huge deficit on the rebounding. And instead, they were able to put it on Bradley 32-19 on the rebounds. And the bigger one was on the offensive glass. So many second chance opportunities off of 11 offensive boards compared to Bradley's 3. And then the defense. This defense is the best I've seen, I think, in the Valley. I can't think of a defense this good ever in the Valley. I mean, Wichita State had a really good balanced team. Those Creighton teams were really balanced as well. Loyola. But defensively, no one compares to just the communication, the activeness that this Drake team has defensively. And that was huge because this is a team that, you watch like an Iowa game or an Iowa State game. It's usually a dunk or something of that nature that gets the fans going, that gets the team going. You just need to see the ball go through the basket. With this Drake team, it's kind of flipped where, yeah, a Manyow dunk gets everyone excited and it's great to see, but it's really a steal and a quick layup on the other end that you see a flip switch. And Drake 11 to 2 in points off turnovers. That just rolls into their bread and butter of they're going to control the clock with being able to control the rebounds and getting turnovers and getting more possessions on the offensive end. They were holding Bradley to multiple scoring droughts in that second half. Bradley's shooting percentage dropped from 52% in the first half to 27% in the second half. They had 10 turnovers. Drake was just all over them. And then finally, we talked about how going into this game, Sturtz is going to need to perform, but he needs help because of how well Bradley guarded him. Sturtz, on fire, finishes with 24 points. He shot 5 of 7 from beyond the arc, 7 of 13 from the field. And then he gets huge help. Off the bench points. Drake outscores Bradley 15-8. You get 13 from Tavion Banks. Drake is now 17-0 when Banks scores 10 or more points off the bench. You get 9 points from Cam Manyow, who I thought played his best game of the year. I mean, sure, you may look at it and go, well, he scored less than 10 and shot 50%, 4 of 8, and had 4 rebounds. But all of those were huge. I mean, the way he played big. And he was going up against guys and Hannah who put up 19 and had a really good game, but really controlled, Janovic, who only had 2 points, just was able to really help out defensively and make things difficult for this big Bradley team. Atlison, he finished it with no points. And it's just credit to, I think Manyow played one of his best games of the year. So not only do you get Bennett Sturtz going off, you got help that you wanted to see. And you probably got more than a little help. If you're a Bulldog fan, you're not used to seeing, I think, as balanced of an offensive performance as you were last night. So great performance. Drake now wins their 3rd straight Missouri Valley Conference title. They punched their ticket to the big dance, which going to trying to figure it out. But if we're not able to go, maybe we can plan something really cool with you, the listeners, with Media Row to watch that game. Because the closest they would be, I think, is Wichita in the first round. So the rest would be flying, and that's a little painful on the pocket, on the wallet. So Drake 30-3, best record in the history of Drake men's basketball. And it is really one of those moments, a pinch me moment, for me as a fan, because like I said, I became a diehard fan with that 2008 team when I was 7 years old. That was my team. But I stuck around, through the Giacoletti years, through the Phelps years, through those seasons. Reed Timmer was awesome, but those teams were not good. There was multiple years where they had 10 or less wins. Those Thursday nights, going over to my dad's to be able to all excited, man, March is special. They just need a run. And watching them get blown out by Evansville on a first round Thursday night game in St. Louis, to now they went to their 7th straight semifinal game, their 4th straight championship game, 3rd straight title. It's going to be cool in the future to take my kid, hopefully, to St. Louis or to the Knapp Center, for sure at the Knapp Center, and see those banners and be like able to tell stories the way my grandpa told me stories about the 1969 team, of how, he was in class with Dolph Pulliam, a TV class. And he always brought up how huge Dolph Pulliam's hands were. But those are the special moments. It's incredible what Brian Harden has done. Kudos to Brian Harden and his staff. He has selected winners and brought a winning culture to Des Moines. But while I'm over here saying it's a pinch me moment, 2 days ago in the postgame press conference after Drake beat Belmont, someone asked Coach McCollum about, the NCAA tournament and, the possibility of his team being in there, what that means. And he said, when he was debating on whether to take the Drake job or not, one of the main things that led him to take the job was the ability and the opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament. So I asked him after the win has it sunk in yet that in year one, you shatter records, you win 30 games, you win the regular season title and Missouri Valley Conference tournament title in the same year outright for the first time since 2008. And now you get to check something off your bucket list of playing in the NCAA tournament. You don't have to sweat out Selection Sunday. You know for sure you're in. You punched your ticket. Has it sunk in yet? And here's what Coach McCollum said with the trophy right next to him.
Well, it's kind of cliche to say, I guess, but when you win championships, a lot of times it's really goes back to just like the memories of the summer and the fall and the spring and all that stuff. Part of the, I guess, winter in Iowa, and just what it took to get there. And so when I go to work every day, I'm essentially just working with my friends. I've got my staff and then my players, who I try to get close with, and that's my job. I get paid to do that. It's a heck of a deal, and obviously the NCAA tournament was it's probably the straw that broke the camel's back in regards to taking this job. It was about 3 a.m. one morning, and I'm pretty close to taking it, and then I kind of woke up and I'm like, man, I want to make the NCAA tournament. Like, I want to do that, the Division I, and so took the job, and now we're there.
So now Drake gets some much-needed rest after punching their ticket, get a few weeks off with the conference tournaments happening, and then they won't play until Thursday or Friday in 2 weeks against whoever they get on Sunday, and that's going to be huge for this team. A team that, Bennett Sturts last night, 39 minutes, 32 seconds on the floor. Mitch Muscari, 39 minutes, 40 seconds. You had 32 minutes from Tavion Banks on the bench. And I'm not going to say who, but there were guys taking the IVs before games, to try to get even more fluid inside them and get them ready to have to play as much as they do. So this rest is going to be huge for this team. And then with it being this time of the year, I was texting my dad actually about this because he brings up a good point, and I'll give credit where credit's due. He brings up the point of, why doesn't Indiana go after Brian Wardle? Because he was watching how this Bradley team played throughout St. Louis, and we're always hearing about Ben McCollum possibly taking one of these Power 5 schools, head coaching jobs, like Indiana is up there as well for Ben McCollum. I think that would fit. I think Wardle's got the style of like he just has a look, for one thing, of an Illinois and Indiana coach, doesn't he? But then two, his style would fit, I think, in the Big Ten really well. I think he's got balance in the way he draws up schemes. I think he knows how to recruit really well. He knows how to develop players too. I mean, he has kept some really strong players at Bradley, even through the NIL craziness. 4 of the starters for Bradley lost against Drake in 2023, and he was able to keep them. Duke Dean has been an incredible guard. Sure, is his height probably another reason why he hasn't been getting bigger offers? Probably, but I don't think it really matters. I mean, when you had guys like Trey Burke in the Big Ten, if you got talent, you have talent. But I think that's just an interesting one and something I wanted to bring up before we ended today's show, just because of the coaching carousel we're going to start seeing. And Ben McCollum's name is going to be in there. Drake fans, like it or not, you're going to hear it a lot, and you're going to hear possibilities of him going to Iowa City. A few people were telling me to ask him about, the job offers, the opportunities he could get, in this off season. But one, it's such a trap question. And it's such, I'm not afraid to ask that question, but I really don't like asking questions that I know the answer. I know he's going to give the coach answer of focus on one game at a time. Hell, when we just talked about, the possibility of, being in the NCAA tournament as a 29-win team before the championship game, he said he didn't care about that. I mean, he's not going to talk about job offers during a conference tournament and during the NCAA tournament. And he's probably just not even going to talk about job offers to the media. So that's why I didn't ask that question, because really I feel like we all know the answer we would get. But that doesn't, discredit the idea that he is going to get phone calls. And Bennett Sturtz probably made himself a lot of money in that Arch Madness tournament as well. Before we end the show, though, let's give a shout out to our title sponsor in Kelly's Little Nipper, 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Once again, wouldn't have been able to go to St. Louis and be able to cover this and do the extra shows without Kelly's Little Nipper. Make sure to head down there whenever you're in Des Moines, or if you're just looking for a good time, head over to Kelly's Little Nipper. Great food, music, great area, just great people to be around, and of course, amazing drinks. I mean, they have great breakfast as well. There's so many things at Kelly's Little Nipper that you can do there. That's why, again, I'll say it time and time again, I am ecstatic about this get for Media Row, because there's so many great options at this little place, Kelly's Little Nipper. Maybe a little, but it has a huge, big feeling around it, and that's Kelly's Little Nipper style of, they're not going to, Jeff and I make fun of the radio commercials that do the address 30,000 times and the phone number 20,000 times, and you're like, okay, cool, I know where you're at and how to call, but what do you do? Kelly's Little Nipper, we'll give the address. We've given that one plenty of times, but it's more just about getting there and really being a part of what Jeff and his group of great workers have built at Kelly's Little Nipper. Great place. Now, as we're getting ready for the summer, great place to go before Iowa Cubs games, State Fair, all that good stuff. So make sure to check out Kelly's Little Nipper. And if you do, make sure to say Media Row sent you. So another great show in the books. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Back to our normal schedule now of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday by 2 o'clock on YouTube, on wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. Huge thank you to the listeners. I know I thanked Ross Peterson at Agency Iowa, which that meant the world, Kelly's Little Nipper, but the listeners too. I mean, without you guys, I can't even try to go and sell this. So huge thank you. And a lot of people that I saw in St. Louis, it was wonderful to meet you. People commenting on our posts on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Love the comments. Really appreciate you guys having my back as well. And really excited to grow this thing as now the madness begins. Conference tournaments today, or this week. starting. We have the Missouri Valley Conference Women's Tournament that we will be previewing on Wednesday among the big conferences and Big 12 getting started, ACC, SEC, which is going to be one of the best conference tournaments we've seen in recent history. Anyone could win that conference tournament in the SEC. So a lot to get to this week, and then be sure to follow along on social media, as I know you always do, because at the Knapp Center, I'm sure they're going to get something special cooking for Selection Sunday. 2023, I remember I had to ask Danny, or annoy him, like I was talking about earlier, of being able to get in and, be one of the media members. But wasn't it great, a lot of fans. Last year, they bring it out onto the main floor, and it was awesome. So I can't imagine what they're going to do now for a three-peat. I hear triples are best, so they win their third straight title. I can't wait to see what happens. Be sure to follow along, because we'll make sure to get that information out as soon as possible with what they have cooking at the Knapp Center for Selection Sunday as well. Have a great week. Hopefully your drive was safe from St. Louis. Maybe you're driving back today, so have a safe drive. And I will see you Wednesday at 2 o'clock.